Amen.
All right. Welcome everybody to Hasidus in the holy city of Tzfat with the great Noam Siegel in the background. Um, Noam, if you can, just put your phone on mute so that it doesn't have any background noise, okay? Okay. So I'm actually going to share, we'll deviate from our standard. What we're doing is we're doing the beautiful teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. But what we're going to do today is a very, very beautiful Sikha of the Rebbe. And effectively, the Rebbe starts off this week's parsha is Parshas Kiseitze. Now, Kiseitze says, Kiseitze l'machama alevecha, when you go out to war against your enemy. Now, war, of course, is not a situation of menucha, a situation of peace. War is the antithesis of peace. And the next parsha, which we are going to read in Mincha and Shabbos Parshas Kiseitze, because of course the Mincha we always do the next parsha, is actually the opposite. It says Kisavai el haaretz, when you come to land, v'yashavta v'yarash, you're going to dwell in it, you're going to inherit it. So these are two opposite states. It's very important to understand this because these two opposite states are basically the two ways that people function in reality. The first way is some people function in a constant state of war. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, some people are lazy, they don't do anything. Other people, they're very aggressive or very assertive, they're very driven. In fact, the Rebbe says the quality of a wealthy person is not necessarily that he's smart. It says, Leila chacham lechem. Smart people don't have bread, but rather that they're very driven. And the drive itself gets them to the destination that they want. So you have a lot of much smarter people that are much poorer than the wealthier people. Why? Because they're not so focused and they're a little bit meandering throughout the journey of life. But on the flip side, to be very, very focused and to be going to war all the time is not necessarily what people want, which is why some people meander. People prefer very often to chill out. I just heard from a friend of mine, an interesting guy. He comes to Tzfas for a couple months. So it turns out he's a very brilliant guy, at least like kind of mathematically. He's got 4 different degrees. He's a tax accountant and he's an engineer and he's a computer. All these different things. So he's working. He tells me he's working with a friend of his. This guy, he met this guy in India. So this guy at 19 years old, he sold his company for over $100 million. And now he just chills out. He goes around basically like a bum around the world. And that's what he says, I want to be free. So that's it. That's his goal, right? Alexander the Great had an interesting connection with the great rabbis. I really want to put out a book once called The Emperors and the Rabbis. Very fascinating conversations because these are individuals that came with a very unique perspective of life. Often they were very, very clever people. Alexander the Great was in fact a genius. He was a disciple of Aristotle. And there were other, of course, conversations between Marcus Aurelius, who I think was the friend of, I think he was called Antoninus, who was a friend of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. In fact, they had a tunnel between their homes, I think in Caesarea. And he would come to Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, he would study Torah or study from him every day. Interesting story was once that there was a sefer that Rabbi Yehuda Anasi wanted. And the king, this guy's the Roman emperor, he gets down on his hands and knees so Rabbi Yehuda Anasi could stand on him so he could get his sefer. Rabbi Yehuda Anasi was like, you don't have to, like, that's already too much spittle. And he was like, no. So he understood good that the Yidden are the future. He asked if he will have a place in Olam Haba. So he told him, Rabbi said, yes, you can have a place because you're from the Chasidei Yom HaSolam, from the good Goyim. While we're on the subject of Olam Haba, it's kind of come to my attention the last couple of days, some interesting things. What is exactly going to be the state of our bodies when Mashiach comes? We know that all of us hanging out in this world, it's very interesting. There was the Torah of Rabbi Meir. Now, the Torah of Rabbi Meir had what's called Kosnas Or, clothing of. Now, Or could be with an ayin or with an aleph. An ayin is basically skin, and an aleph is light. So in the Torah of Rabbi Meir, it says that the skin, the body of Adam Rishon Chava was made out of light. In fact, it says he was so bright that he dimmed his ankles, the dimmest part of his body, dimmed the light. When Mashiach comes, we're going to return to having these bodies, the bodies of light. It says, ayin ba'ayin you, eye to eye, you will see something very, very interesting that is said, which is that even though there are people that have passed on, and these people, the tzaddikim that have passed on, in fact, right here in Sfas is buried somebody who was taken 20 years from after his grave, and his body was whole, right? We know a famous thing that if a person doesn't have any jealousy, they're very humble, or other ways, they study Torah a lot, the body doesn't go through what's called chibat kever, getting eaten by worms, God forbid, and the person's body is whole. I heard it from somebody at the Chaver Kaddish Johannesburg. They moved somebody again, it was like 20 years after the passing, a husband and wife, they moved them to Israel. And one of them, the body was completely whole. But even those people that have been, let's say, around Moshe Rabbeinu thousands of years, maybe not Moshe Rabbeinu, but let's use Moshe Rabbeinu as an example, still, right before Mashiach, it says even us that we're going to live forever, when Mashiach comes, right before Mashiach, we are going to go through a temporary instant death, and then we will get a new body. And this new body will have this tremendous capacity to be able to, integrate light, to see things that maybe we can't see now. So I don't want to talk, as they call it, out of turn, or as they say in Yiddish, a boich svara, coming from your belly button, you come up with ideas. I try to say whatever I say, I try that it should be based on Torah, on Chassidus, it should have a solid source. But there is some kind of a concept here whereby we will have a kind of a body that will have a much greater capacity. Now, I just want to look this thing up. So I want to look this thing up. So to get more information about it, maybe I could do another class. It's not the main thing of the class today. But the main thing of the class today is to say that we are in a situation that we are going to be upgraded, right? Right now we're going through upgrades. I met, around Tzfas, there's some very holy Jews wandering around. In general, to get to Tzfas, you got to be a bit of a Halakhi Yid. And this lady, she told me an interesting thing. She says, we're all going through basically upgrades. And this is very, 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 very true. We've said this many times. Over 62% of the world believe they have a personal relationship with God. And it's very real, right? You can't fool somebody on an internal structure. If I saw, if I have a sense, I love my wife or something. You can't come to me and say, you don't love your wife. I know my heart. I love my wife. You can't say I don't love my wife. So this internal reality, externally, there's a lot of chaos going on. But internally, there's a lot of truth going on. In fact, I heard this from Leila Wolf. He says that it says in Kabbalah that before Mashiach comes, you'll have to use the wisdom in your inner heart to remain sane. So this is the time that we're in. Getting back to the Rebbe's Torah portion, the Rebbe's teachings in the Torah portion, so we have, on one hand, this dichotomy between the time of Galus, the time that we have to fight a war, that we have to go, the neshama comes from heaven, and it comes into this world, and it has to deal with the body, it has to deal with other people's taivas, other people's desires, it has to deal with the media, with foolish, basically lies and false perceptions of reality. And we then have to rise, we have to bring Mashiach, we have to be Mashiach, we have to be the light that shines. This is really, in a way, what we're doing here in Eretz Yisrael is meant to be literally the Jewish people. We are meant to be Or Lagoyim, a light to the Gentiles, which we were. We went over the entire world. The Rebbe actually says, he speaks so much about the coming of Mashiach. For many people, they think, how can Mashiach come to us? We're such a low generation. But we fulfilled a very deep purpose of this world, which was to be collecting its Tzotzos HaKadoshos, to go around, to go around the world and to go into all locations. For example, I want to tell you something interesting. I was a rabbi in a place called Plettenberg Bay. Gosh, you ever heard of Plettenberg Bay, South Africa? You should go see it sometime. Gorgeous. One of probably the nicest places in the world. Beautiful, beautiful bay. Gorgeous bay. Whales would come to give birth to their children there because the bay, they had boats that would go out to see the whales. Very, 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 very much. A beautiful place. They had what's called a blue beach or something. It was like a few places in the world. It was very pristine. They had this unique kind of shell, a pansy shell. Like one of these places, like a unique place in the world. Like one of the goyim there said that when God made the world, he spent an extra 2 minutes on Plettenberg Bay. Extraordinary beauty. So anyway, it was a bit of a resort town. Baruch Hashem, I was zeicha to be the shliach. I once had a dream that I was like a shliach in Siberia. I was going through the snow. And some people, they get their location to Siberia. I met the shliach in Siberia, real tzaddik. I'm not such a tzaddik. I couldn't hack a shlichus in Siberia. I'm the kind of guy, I need like a shlichus in Tzfat, a resort town. These are kind of my kind of shlichuses, So in any event, I was in Plettenberg Bay. Trying to remember why I brought up Plettenberg Bay. What was I saying? Remember what I was saying? Gotta remember. I remember. Any event. The main subject here, if anybody remembers, let me know. The main subject here is this idea, fill you in the background, is that we have kiseitze and kisavai, right? So kiseitze is you're going out to milchama. The neshama comes into the world, and we're going. It's a battle, right? Always talking about Eretz Yisrael, the idea of being Arla Goyim. So, Baruch Hashem, I remember. So next to Plettenberg Bay, an hour and a half away, is this town. It's called Otzorn. Otzorn was called the Yerushalayim of Africa. Why? Because about 150 years ago, there was basically a craze in Europe. Fashion is a funny thing. One day people want this, the next day people want that. 20 years later, they're wearing glasses that nobody would caught dead with a year ago. So there was this fashion of having ostrich feathers, like maybe in the hat you had an ostrich feather. Now these ostriches would grow in this place called Otzorn. It's very high up because of the altitude, whatever. It was a good place for ostriches to hang out. In fact, I met some people, Yidden, they had ostrich farms. So,
What do you use it for? Meat?
No, it was just the feathers of the ostrich. It was like this fashion to have an ostrich feather. So it became like a valuable thing to grow ostriches. But ostrich meat is actually sold. Have you ever seen an ostrich egg?
Yeah, it's the biggest egg.
Yeah, it's a massive egg. In Africa, they make a lot of designs on ostrich eggs. Very beautiful. Okay, fine. This is the story. In the end of the day, it was very interesting because I went to a shul, and basically the Yidden there, you know what an Afrikaner is? Afrikaner is like,
Language.
Yeah, Afrikaans is a language, but the Boer, they were these Dutch people that came and they kind of settled South Africa. And they had a language called Afrikaans. Afrikaans is like a Dutch, it's an offshoot of a Dutch language. White people, yeah. They settled South Africa. Could it be that it was part of the Dutch East Indies Company, which, by the way, was a Jewish company? And they were a very, very powerful company. They owned a lot of land and things like this. In any event, so they're kind of their own tribe, the Dutch, the Afrikaners, they're their own behemoth, their own tribe in a way. They're very proud of their country, and there were wars. They fought with England, and then of course got a little bit of tension between the blacks and the whites, and all this kind of stuff. But in any event, the Dutch, the Afrikaners. So you're meeting the Jews of this town. It was like very similar to meeting like these Afrikaners. They spoke with these heavy accents. And there was a siddur that was translated into Afrikaans. So Afrikaans. So the idea is that the Eibishter wanted, the Rebbe says, he wanted us to go to the whole world. And we had to elevate in it Tzoytzos HaKadoshos, wherever we are. And now for this to happen, we had to grow up like an Afrikaner. I grew up in Kansas City. I was just speaking to a guy. I asked him, his a little bit of a story. So he told me his father was from Poland. typical guy like from, I don't know, Montreal, Canada. You would never think that he's from Poland. His father was from Poland. So in order for us to elevate the Nitzoitzos, we had to go and become like part of the culture. I don't know if you know this, but the Russians are very good into spying, making the world crazy. Baruch Hashem, everything's perfect in Russia, so they can deal with the rest of the world. So they would bring up children in these entire like cities that they should actually integrate, like they would play baseball, that the child should think like an American. And so also the Abishah brought us to these countries, and you had children growing up, but then we weren't like the Goyim. We used the place for Kedusha. You built a shul, you used a language for Torah. There was a guy, a rabbi, who translated the Tanya into Arabic. The Rebbe was very, very excited. So the Rebbe said, "You know what you did?" And he says, "No." The Rebbe says, "You extracted the klippa of Yishmael." In other words, the Yishmael has a klippa. The country, it says a country is not a country unless they have their own coins and their own language. So there's a whole klippa. There's a malach. In fact, it says the malach of Russia and the malach of the Arabs is the same malach. So basically, to take the klippa, I mean, the Rebbe said this a while ago, so I think the Arabs, but in a certain sense, the Arabs are really going down. I mean, this is the final act of violence maybe that they've done. But, you look at Syria, it's a mess. You look at Egypt, it's not such a great, Yemen, it's a civil war. Libya, it's a civil war. Jordan, they're just trying to maintain themselves from, quote unquote, the Palestinians there. I mean, the whole Arab civilization is finished. It's like if they didn't have dictatorships, they would kill their leaders in a second. So it's like their whole thing is basically over. So all of this leads us back to this point of kiseitim. You're going out, and we have to extract. So it's a Muhammad, right? This country has its value system, and you have to go as a Yid, and you say, no, I've got a different value system. I using your material, like we in Natslos Mitzrayim, we took everything out of Egypt and we elevated it to Kedusha and went into holiness. Very nice. However, the next parsha is Parshas Kisavai. You enter into the land, and it says V'yashafta v'yidishtava, that it's bebenucha. That's the opposite of Kisei Tzil Muhammad. So the Rebbe says something which is very, very profound and very important. If I may say in the lingo that some people understand, in a certain sense, both Mishachistan and Anti don't understand what's really going on. The Rebbe is saying that on one hand, Mashiach is here. Right? Mashiach is here doesn't really mean that the world ceases to exist. It means that the world is the way the Eibishter planned for Yemais HaMashiach, right? So what does that mean practically? It means that the beginning of the schar, the Rebbe says, now is the time that Hashem is giving us the schar, He's giving us the reward for everything. So what does that mean practically? What is schar? If somebody says, okay, you were such a great guy, you were an employee for 50 years of the company, we're giving you this beautiful, bonus of $1 million. What can you do with $1 million? You can't eat $1 million. You relax. Baruch Hashem, I have $1 million. I don't have to stress out. Maybe I can take a vacation. I have menuchas nefesh. Right? The Rebbe says there are 3 benefits. He says we should all be wealthy. In fact, he says we are wealthy already. We just have to reveal it through putting in some effort. And the 3 benefits to money. Number 1, you give tzedakah. You're going to do mitzvahs behider, buy a nice pair of tefillin, etc. And most importantly, not most importantly, I should say it's the 3rd, and you can have menuchas and nefesh. You don't have to worry. I have the money. I can pay my bill, whatever. Very nice. So, the story is that the reward, which is menuchas hanefesh, which is peace of mind, is already here. And now we are putting together kisavai and kiseitza. In other words, you always have to be involved. The person that's doing nothing doesn't feel good about themselves. We feel, a person feels good from accomplishment. The Rebbe says peace in life comes from purpose in life. You have to feel like I'm accomplishing something. It's very important. Now, on the flip side, that can come as a stress. Like we said in the beginning, there's some people that are very good at accomplishing, but they're always stressed. And other people that are kind of good at not accomplishing, and they may be calm, but they're lacking this joy. So you have to realize that you can do both at the same time. You can accomplish in a peaceful way. And this is the schar, this is the reward that God is giving us. That, and the Rebbe says something else which is really quite interesting. It says as follows, that we are in a time, I just have to remember it. Oh, hold on one second. What's the part? Rabbi says that. One second, it's here in the book. Let me look it up. Oh. Just one moment, please. Oh, very interesting. She says that Kiseitze lemachama alevecha refers to milchemes reshus. It's a war that you have permission. You can do it or you cannot do it. The king does it, let's say, to expand territory, something like that. It's not like a chayv, it's not like an obligation. So now we're talking that God owes us a reward, a big reward, thousands of years of mitzvahs nefesh and Torah mitzvahs. Every moment, everything was beating the Yetzer Hara. You can't imagine the reward. I remember this guy's very holy yid. He was like, Shiach comes, the guy is going to say, what do you want, a Lamborghini, a Porsche? Like, you can't imagine what's going to come to you. Very nice. So the question is, do we deserve this reward? The fact that I'm serving God, do I deserve a reward for serving God? The answer is yes, you do. Why? On one hand, you can say it's my obligation, right? God took us out of Egypt, Avadai, we're now his servants. It's your obligation. In fact, there's a beautiful story that there was a yid, a rabbi that would go to Russia from time to time. One of the times, Rabbi Riskin, I think I heard the story from him. One time, the rabbi said to him, you're going to learn something special. And he was in a shul, I think it was a Lubavitcher who was on the bima, and he said something like, it's our job, it's our obligation to serve Hashem. Like, we don't need any rewards. This is our job. The Rebbe says it depends what you're talking about, your body or your soul. Because actually, the neshama was basically, in essence, is Hashem. Hashem consulted the soul if to make the world. So you were the decision maker of this world. You chose to come into this world. And so therefore you deserve a reward for everything because it was a mechames reshus, it was a choice that you made. Our neshamas chose to be here and chose to be hidden within our bodies and go through everything that we went through in order to do the mission, because you'd have to be, if you were just a tzaddik, you knew that it was all godly, it wouldn't be much of a mission. So it had to be concealed from you. So it was concealed, but really you were the one that chose to come into this world to do the light, to spread the light. So now you really deserve a reward for everything. In a certain sense, I didn't see this in the Sikha. This was just a Sikha, it was a summary, so I hope they got the summary right. But basically what they say is that you were the light before the creation. You are the light after the creation, the light of Mashiach. And now we can reveal that light. We can live in that light as we speak now. And when you're coming from that place, which is the place that I chose this world, I chose to be the light in this world. I chose to come. So suddenly all the darkness doesn't really bother you that much. When does darkness bother us? We said this the other day. I think it's the Ron says, why is it that, adults, if they get into an argument, that's it. You offended me. I'm not speaking to you. Even though it says in the Mishnah that there can't be such a thing as a Jew that doesn't talk to a Jew because he hates him for 3 days. This is not a Jewish thing. But unfortunately, we see in life it happens. When I got to South Africa, I learned a new word. It's called faribble. You know what a faribble is? It's like a resentment. Unfortunately, they're very, very vulnerable. So people that are very sensitive, particularly let's say women, if you say something wrong, it can go deep. Or a child, if you say something to a child, it will hurt them very deeply because they're very vulnerable. In any event, you have to be very careful with our speech. So if a person gets the Gan Eden, they're accountable for sicha kala. A person may think that it's my wife, whatever, she's driving me insane. I can say something, every single thing, because what people forget. I remember when Ariel Sharon unfortunately expelled the Jews from Gush Katif, and now we're suffering from that horrific, evil decision. I think the Rebbe told him never to go into politics, which he would have much better off. Interesting how 6 months later he had a terrible coma. 4 years he was in the state. But in any event, and I mentioned Ariel Sharon. What was I saying? What was I just saying?
Something to do with decision penalties.
Children, yeah, I was saying about children. They'll come back to me. But basically, that with children, the thing is with children is that they don't get upset.
Talking about the letter he sent him, this kid was killed.
No. But in any event, yeah, we're seeing the
Saying about a sichakalo and everything.
Sichakal again, Nathan. Yeah. Okay, so a child, I don't remember exactly, but basically a child, why is it that the child will just play with his friend? Children get into fights and they're playing 2 minutes later. Why? Because the child playing is more important than being right. The adult, sometimes the ego is more important than the having fun. So, just 1 second. Okay. Fine. So basically, the bottom line of the Sikha is that we are in a positive state now. We're in a state where we should be engaged in Torah mitzvahs and Gentile and 7 Noahide laws and goodness and kindness in a way that you chose to do this. This is something that's not being forced on me. This was my choice. It's very interesting, actually. When Mashiach comes, we're going to be in a situation that there's a question. If it says mitzvahs betelis la'aseh, the mitzvahs will be batel. So we know that it says mitzvah zulaitehi mechlefes. The mitzvah won't be batel. So what's it going to be? Will the mitzvahs be or not be? So the answer is a mitzvah is something you command somebody that maybe could not do the mitzvah. But when Mashiach comes, everything will naturally go to the way of a mitzvah. So you can't even command someone. Like I don't command somebody to eat because it's a natural thing to eat. You can't command someone to breathe. They breathe. So there's that concept that we're going to be doing things from almost automatically from a higher place. The world itself, if you want to go take off a fruit from the tree will say, "What are you doing? It's Shabbos today." So there's a couple of actual messages, bottom line messages that the Rebbe gives in the Sikha, which I would like to share. And the first is that we have to understand and we have to spread this idea that we are at the conclusion of our work. The Rebbe had a very consistent message. And this is why I said before, I think that sometimes both Meshchis and non-Meshchis don't understand it. Meaning the Rebbe is saying, I think Meshchis know a lot closer, but the Rebbe is saying that Mashiach has begun, right? You can say, oh, Mashiach is totally not here, we need Mashiach, it's so bad. Or you can say, Mashiach is totally here, there is no exile, right? And both of those are kind of wrong. You have to say that Mashiach has begun. The time of Mashiach is like sunlight. It's like, is a day? I don't know. It looks a little dark, but actually the sun is shining already. It's beginning to shine. No, it's actually, this is what we call Mashiach. This is the beginning stages of Mashiach. And because it's the beginning stages of Mashiach, therefore we have so many of the miracles of Mashiach. We're here in Eretz Yisrael, Baruch Hashem. The world is infinitely better for the Jewish people than it's ever been. We have tremendous wisdom in the world, technology. There's a lot more health in the world, a lot more human rights. There's a lot more spirituality in the world. We're here at Eretz Yisrael. There's all tremendous, tremendous things that the world was yearning for thousands of years. We're in it already. So this shows us that we're mamish connected to the times of this light that is coming. It's already begun to come. And it's very important to have this knowledge. Why? Because otherwise we're oivei. Everything is like oivei. There's certain people, Tisha B'Av, it's Baruch Hashem. The bigger the oivei, the bigger the wow. But no, that's not the Vart of the Rebbe. The Vart of the Rebbe is no, we're yayid. We're like, wow, this good thing, that good thing. We're in tremendous blessings. So in this sense, we have to understand that we're already started the reward stage. So if life is not as difficult and if life is better, you're able to feel a certain sense of peace and serenity in your life, that's a good thing. It's because Mashiach is here. And because Mashiach is here, you can do your avodah. You can never bum out, but you can do your work in a way of joy and simcha. You can learn about Mashiach in a way of joy. The Rebbe says we should learn the last 2 chapters of the Rambam. Everything in a way of simcha and menucha and happiness. Including the Rebbe says to make farbrengens. There'll be a farbrengen tonight, 9 o'clock at YTD for whoever would like. Now, the Rebbe speaks about the shlichus because we're coming into the 15th of Av, which is when Temple Temim was started. 15th of Av, which when was Temple Temim was made, and we, all of us around the table here, we are all Temimim. We're all people that learned in Temple Temim. It says our neshamas were chosen. Why were we chosen? To shine the light of Hashem, shine the light of Chassidus to the whole world. And that's what Eretz Yisrael needs to be. Eretz Yisrael needs to be Rechavim Zevi, all of Hashem. So many the Arabs, really the terrorists, they all should die instantaneously, or at least do tshuva. How many beautiful people they've murdered right now, holding hostages. It's insane what's going on. Eretz Yisrael really just needs to wipe out the enemy. It's insane to as they call it, to pussyfoot around this problem. The West in general is doing this tremendous. You have Iran making nuclear weapons. It's insanity. But the bottom line is that Chavim Zevi came to the Rebbe and he said, "What else is he was a minister of the government. What else is my mission?" So the Rebbe said to him that Eretz Yisrael should be a holy land. It's not just meant to be a land. It's meant to be a place where, and it is a place to some extent, at least Jerusalem, where Gentiles come and they say, wow, this is God's land. This is God's people. Soon the Beis HaMikdash will be there. It'll be clear to everybody that this is the holiest place in the world. This is the place of God. And the Rebbe said that in every house we have to have a little mini Beis HaMikdash, place of Torah, Tefillin, Gemilas Chasadim, learning Chassidus, a little bit similar to Yeshiva Temple Temim. And we should also be certain to look out for those people that need help for the Chag, for the Yom Tov. 30 days before the Yom Tov, we do whatever we can to bestow upon people the needs that they have. L'chaim v'levracha. Any questions? Okay, very good. Any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, everybody, be well.